Richard Collins III. The events that took place here on our campus are not activities that we condone. And while Mr. Sean Urbanski was a student here, prior to his acceptance at the college, we did not do any research based on his other activities that take place in his life. And we accept students only based on their academic excellence. So that was not a part of our investigations as to how he got accepted here. So we do sincerely apologize for that. But we do not condone any activities as such on our campus.
1 minute. That's it. That's it.
Call your first witness.
Our first witness is Colin's friend.
Who's your witness?
Colin's friend.
Who is it? You gotta have it. You need to have a witness.
Somebody has to act as him.
Somebody have to act.
Somebody from your group needs to be acting like a witness. How many people in your group?
Two right now.
Who is in your group? Mr. Muslim, you got to be a witness.
You have to answer questions.
All right. First question I asked to you is, do you consider yourself African American? Do you believe Urbanski acted on a hate crime towards Lieutenant Richard Collins III?
Well, yes, I believe that Urbanski acted on a hate crime because it happened out of nowhere. We were just standing at the bus stop. We didn't provoke him or we didn't do anything.
If he was repeatedly stabbed, why didn't you help?
Well, it happened so fast that I couldn't react to it. By the time I reacted, he was gone, and then my friend was stabbed multiple times.
Why do you believe Sean stabbed Collins and not you?
I believe he stabbed Collins because he felt as though Collins was
Wait,
more
wait.
superior, I guess, because he was in the military, and he felt as though he had to take action.
Do you believe Urbanski knew what he was going,
1 minute.
what he was doing at the time of the incident? Do you believe he was intoxicated?
I believe that Urbanski wasn't intoxicated. I believe that actually he's not even. I mean, his mental state is intact, and that he did it out of pure hate. So I believe that he knew what he was doing.
No further questions.
Cross-examination. Defense cross-examination of the prosecution witness.
So, if Sean was coming up to you, why didn't you stop him before he got stabbed?
Urbanski didn't come up to me. Actually, he came up to my friend Collins, and he stabbed my friend Collins. So before I could react, he already had stabbed my friend.
Why didn't you guys just walk away before it happened?
I mean, it happened so quick that we didn't even know what was going to happen. We didn't do nothing to provoke the incident in the first place, so how would we know to just walk away?
Were you guys intoxicated yourselves?
No, we don't involve ourselves in that activity.
Do you think UMD is a diverse institution?
Yes, I believe UMD is a diverse institution. It's a lot of different races and ethnicities there. So I believe so.
So if UMD is a diverse
1 minute.
institution, how can you label this a hate crime?
Well, regardless if it's a diverse institution or not, Sean Urbanski was white and my friend was black, and we didn't do nothing to provoke it. So, regardless of what, he had to act out of hate to do this type of crime or this type of incident.
No further questions.
Y'all got to
Defense witness. Give them their time, Ms. Hall.
You can begin.
Alright, so our witness is the president of UMD, Wallace Lowe. So, same question, do you think University of Maryland is a diverse institution?
Yeah, I believe it's a really diverse university for all our students.
And do you think our students live up to the measures of excellence set forth for them?
Yes.
Do you think this was a hate crime?
I don't believe it was a hate crime. You know, our students, on campus love to, party and have extracurricular activities. So I highly doubt it would be a hate crime.
We don't have any more questions.
Okay.
My question to you, sir, would be, first,
Let me just make sure you guys realize, this is a prosecution of the university, not Urbanski. This is the prosecution of the university. You have to show the criminal liability of the university based upon the doctrine of corporate responsibility, as we discussed in the last class. So you have to outline what the elements of, again, the crime. In this case, it would not be the commission of the hate crime, it would be commission of murder, and again, the university being accessory to murder, based upon, again, the doctrine of corporate responsibility, which we discussed in the last class. All right, just want to make sure that was clear.
so I want to know, how many cases like this has happened?
And again, judges, they should be using whatever PowerPoint presentation. That's what your job is.
Well, our cross examination was Sean, so I didn't know we had to get in tune with this group to have the same person to do the cross examination.
So now, again, you have to now cross-examine that person.
Right, but this is a different person. We had Sean as our cross examination person. They got the president.
That's not, again, you are, again, the prosecution. It was stated on there. You all are going to be prosecuting the university.
Well, okay. I guess, like I stated before, how many incidents like this has happened in your university in the last 5 years?
Not that much.
Not that much. Do you believe that? Okay. How long has Urbanski been attending University of Maryland? Have you noticed any behavior? How is your school programs a diverse selection pertaining all races?
Yes. Yeah. Most of our students that attend are different races.
as well as social groups and outings as well? Is there a large diverse population at your school with different programs and groups pertaining individuals that they may feel superior to other races? How is the school campus affected by this since this
40 seconds.
this incident? How is the school?
Students on campus are hurt. They had a memorial at the bus stop. It's the next day after the death happened.
How would you prevent this from occurring on your school campus in the future?
Having more police officers out on campus, more people patrolling the areas, bus stops, different places.
No more further questions. we believe the motive is very clear. We are confident that this case was a hate crime and should be charged as such. This not only was a senseless act of violence, but there are lots of visual evidence from his phone and computer that shows hatred towards people of color. And this ties into what we're trying to convey.
Alright, so for our closing argument, basically, we're a diverse campus. We don't really have one race on campus. And almost half of our students are students of color. And not only are our students diverse, our courses are diverse too. We can't control what students do outside of class. We can't take away their right to freedom of speech and privacy. He was a part of this group, and that's protected under his rights of privacy. And we didn't run any background checks because it's not a part of our application process unless we have a probable cause. And since he didn't have any criminal history, we had no way of telling that he was capable of doing something like this. Anytime we have an incident that might be hate-centered, we take immediate action. We conduct our investigations. Yeah, that's our
It's been your turn throughout the entire thing. I said the only time that the judges cannot speak were just 2 times. We're supposed to be speaking throughout the entire time. But you have some time now. What time, Mr. Hall, do the judges have left?
2, 3, isn't it 3 minutes for the judges?
You gonna be 3 minutes?
Yeah, I believe.
Okay, so we have questions for the University of Maryland. Do you have a policy for protecting your students against violent hate crimes? If so, what is that policy?
Are you talking about the victims or the?
Talk about students in general.
Well, anytime a hate crime happens, we investigate, and if we find students guilty of it, we immediately take action and expel them from the university.
Okay, well, so it was stated that the school was notified before this crime, that he was a part of this hate group. Why was there no action taken when this was brought to your attention?
Well, because it wasn't violent, and because it wasn't violent, it was just, he was exercising his freedom of speech.
Okay, so when members are identified as belonging to groups that frequently perform acts of violence against people of color, which people of color are in a very, very small percentage of the university, why do you not do anything about it?
He has a right to be with whichever group that he wants to be with. However, once action takes place on campus, that's when we have an issue.
And people of color are not a small percentage of the university, they make up almost half of it.
However, if the hate group has a history of violence, why would you not look into the student's background instead?
Well, that particular group didn't have a history. What the group stands for might have been something that they themselves have not done anything.
You said over half. What is that number?
I said almost half.
Almost half? What is that number?
Well, last time I checked, the white population was about 53. So,
1 minute.
yeah, so 47% are students of color, and that's Black, African Americans, Hispanic, Latino, and Native Americans.
All right, so since we have a new commander-in-chief, a lot of hate groups have rise.
30 seconds.
And usually, not usually, sitting down, especially in Charlottesville, that's Charlottesville community. A lot of protests has turned violent, and a lot of people have been hurt because of the hate groups. So I would think y'all would have some type of policy that will look further into students that are just joining hate groups, or you have no questions. Because of them basically becoming more.
All right. Thank you. Couple quick notes. First of all, anytime the judges are addressing anybody, you have to stand up. That's what we've been training you guys from the very beginning of the class. All right. So just a quick point about that. However, I think that there are some real good performances that I've seen. Let's just go over the grading. First of all, in terms of the parents, the appearance of the group 2, both of you all came dressed, and that was impressive. So for that, we gave you a 90 for that. Second of all, the appearance of this, I'll go back and forth. Appearance of the other side, you guys were not so, uniformly dressed professionally as lawyers, particularly the lawyer. Lawyers, you can't really go into court without a shirt and tie, period. But definitely shirt, you know what I mean? Without a shirt and tie, generally it's deemed unprofessional, but definitely without a dress down shirt, a polo shirt, just be definitely, out of order, right? And university president, you would just like, it'd be one thing if you were the friend, coming, being a witness and not having a shirt and tie, you know what I mean? But the university president, you definitely would have to have a shirt and tie. So that group 1 got 85 for that. The substance, I pointed out that prosecution was prosecuting UMD as opposed to the Urbanski. And while the prosecution, what I did is I took into consideration that my instructions didn't say who you were going to be prosecuting, but you should have, since you were the prosecutor, and you knew that there were 2 different defendants, come prepared to prosecute both, right? Also, when I flagged you, that should have said, okay, I got to switch up. I know my deck has something else, but let me be more diverse. You did that when your questioning started changing, but the rest of your presentation. Second of all, the prosecutor, what you have to do is you're the plaintiff, so you need to actually state what it is up front that you want to prove. You need to actually spell out. I think your slides have said, again, what we have to show are the elements of this crime. And what we will show, you should state specifically the facts that you're going to state in order to show the elements of that crime. All right, that would have been necessary. And then on the other side, the defense opening statement would have stated, I thought it was, so again, let me make sure, so in terms of the opening and the opening, the closing statements from group 2, again, as I said, I think that you were a little bit thrown off and you didn't transition that well, but nevertheless, I gave you a little bit of benefit and gave you 89. For group 1, though, group 1, I thought that you guys did a stellar job. Your only couple points of weaknesses were, 1, in your opening statement, I thought it was astute to state that you were, again, sorry and sympathetic towards the loss of the family. That was, I mean, superb. However, you almost even kind of almost admitted to having, been involved in wrongdoing, because you didn't spell out that, again, despite the action of Urbanski, you all's, procedure and protocol were correct, and that you were not aware of, again, the activities of Urbanski, and your law enforcement took immediate action to apprehend him. Those are the things that have been mitigating to, again, shield you all from, again, criminal responsibility, and you didn't make that clear. But again, I thought that you all had, a command, at least of what your roles were, and so for that, I gave you guys a 91. In terms of the group member participation, I think that both groups could have done better to make sure that everybody's participating equally, and that's, again, you have to work on that. But both you guys gave you an 89 for group member participation. For group 2, PowerPoint, you didn't use it that well. We gave you a 90 for that, and group 1, I gave you guys a little bit more because I thought your presentation, PowerPoint presentation, went more to your score, more to your objective. In the cross-examination of group 2, or not just cross-examination, but direct examination, again, it was a little, again, thrown off because, again, your questions were really geared towards Urbanski. But on the other,
the direct was geared to the front.
To friend, right? The friend was geared. So your direct was geared to the friend, which was again still, but it was about Urbanski, not necessarily the school taking the type of the steps. You know what I mean?
Oh, this whole thing was about the school.
It was all about the school.
Yeah.
Ours is about
However, I want to say that Mr. Muslim did a good job with playing the role of the friend, and however, so again, because of his skill, you guys didn't get totally dinged for that. We gave you guys an 89, but in the context of the other side, the cross-examination, you guys did a great job, because what you did is you all knew what your elements were. And you asked a question to Mr. Muslim about the diversity of the school. And he conceded, right? And so, but you all should really capitalize that at the end. And so, again, the cross-examination, all this is to bring out information that can be used in your closing statement. The direct and the cross. So again, you state, first of all, what we're going to prove, right? And then do your direct and your cross, you actually prove that. And then during the closing, you said, well, you have heard such and such. That's element 1. You heard such and such. That's element 2. You heard, you did not hear this and this. Again, so again, if I'm on prosecution, I would say, you've heard such and such, that's element 1. You've heard such and such, element 2. You heard such and such, way, right? And then I go to my defenses. You didn't hear that there was any issue again, the university, you didn't hear that they had, again, set up a hotline for the students to report hate crimes. You didn't hear them talking about how they have been focusing on monitoring alt-right groups on their campuses. Those are the type of things you guys would say. You would say, again, you did not hear that our campus was not diverse. In fact, the witness for the prosecution admitted that it was diverse. You see what I mean? So those are the types of things that, again, you all want to think of when you're doing these types of, again, proceedings. But nevertheless, in terms of the Q&A, we gave team one a 96 for their performance in the Q&A. So the scores remarkably are not too far off. One got a low 90 and the other got a high 90 in terms of scores, but we'll round them both up to 91. All right?
Hey, Professor.
Yes, sir.
I got a question on the last.
Hold on 1 second. Also, the judges. Again, the judges. You all were pretty much silent the entire time. That right there is, you got another shot at it this next time. But you have to make sure that you all get engaging. The only time you can't engage is in opening and closing, all right? Allow the people to say that. You need to engage throughout the time, all right? Yes, sir.
On the last.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's 8:45. Can we take those after?
8:45. Oh, I know where to go. Hey, can one of y'all do this? Can you do this? Thank you.
What's your name? Next to him, so he can do his post.
Record.
Take it first. Not us.
What was that? That?
Is that you? Is that you? Wow.
Right.
It's not on.
Who's gonna get the time? Get the time to search. Let's go. Prosecution.
Good morning. My name is Kayla Hall,
Justina Samayan. Tajay Hyde.
and we, the state of Maryland, are here to represent Lieutenant Richard Collins III in his murder case.
Before we get into actual evidence, let us tell you a little bit about Lieutenant Richard Collins. Richard Collins was a young 23-year-old African-American male who attended Bowie State University. He was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army and was set to graduate moments before his death. He was a loved son, friend, and a student.
On May 20th, 2017, Lieutenant Richard Collins was killed while waiting for an Uber around 3 a.m. at the University of Maryland, Montgomery Hall bus stop with two friends after visiting other friends on the campus. Sean Urbanski approached Mr. Collins and his friends and started yelling bizarre commands at him. He said to the victim, "Step left if you know what's good for you." The witnesses said, according to the police chief. The victim looked puzzled with the other friends of his and said no. It was then said that the suspect stabbed the victim in his chest. Collins fell backwards. His friends tried to help him before university officers arrived and performed CPR. He said. Urbanski ran from the scene but was found nearby with a folding knife in his pocket, police said. Collins was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead around 4 a.m.
Just go to our witness.
My name is Shauna Green.
My name is Austin Parks.
I'm Tiani King. Early in the morning on May 20, 2017, it was around 3 a.m. that a former student of the University of Maryland, Sean Urbanski stabbed and killed former student of Bowie State University, Lieutenant Richard Collins III. Today we will prove to you that the stabbing was not a random act, nor was it a hate crime, but rather retaliation from words exchanged between the two involved. Urbanski did not have the men's right to murder Lieutenant Richard Collins III.
We will now call Collins' friend to the stand as our first witness. Where were you when Sean Urbanski approached Richard Collins?
We were in front of the Montgomery Hall bus stop waiting for an Uber, and I was right next to him.
What exactly did Sean Urbanski say to Richard Collins?
He approached him, and he said, step left if you know what's best for you. Mr. Sean was quite puzzled, and then he said no, and then he ended up stabbing him.
On May 20th, the night of the killing, did it seem to you that Sean Urbanski was inebriated or under the influence?
Not to my knowledge.
No further questions. We will now call the police to the stand as our second witness.
I gotta do the cross.
From the evidence you discovered through Urbanski's devices, would you say this killing was premeditated?
Yes. Well, no.
Why are you so undecided?
I'm not undecided. I would just say no because we feel. I would say no because when I approached the scene, it just seemed as if, well, from what I was told from the friends, it just seemed as though he was unprovoked.
No further questions.
So what evidence did y'all actually discover on the scene?
What evidence did we discover? We discovered the knife and...
Well, she's not. You can answer that because she's the witness.
This is the police, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we discovered the knife in his pocket when he was right next to the scene.
No further questions.
Can I get the front back to the stands?
Yeah, I can read all that.
No, we're gonna do cross.
This is
We'll cross in this
cross-examination,
one. Where were you and what were you doing at the time of the incident?
I was right next to Mr. Collins.
Doing what?
We were just waiting for the Uber.
Okay. Where were you, why were you out at 3 in the morning?
We were visiting friends.
So you decided to leave wherever you're coming from at 3 o'clock in the morning. Were you coming from a party or were you coming from?
We were supposed to be just visiting my friends on campus.
Okay. Isn't it true that your friend, Mr. Collins, refused to move out of the way when Mr. Urbanski asked him to move to the left?
Yeah, because he didn't understand why he would move.
Do you think that Mr. Collins' words and actions could have provoked Mr. Urbanski?
No.
So you don't think he would have been intimidated since it was reviewed as against one? Okay. Do you think that this could have been prevented if Mr. Collins would have just moved out of the way?
Probably, but he didn't really have a reason to move.
So you said,
he was the one that was provoked. I mean, he was the one that Mr. Urbanski was the one who came to Mr. Collins.
okay. Did Mr. Urbanski look a little bit unnormal?
Not to my knowledge.
He looked normal?
He didn't look unnormal to my knowledge.
Do we have a question?
Did you know Mr. Urbanski at all before this event took place?
Answer the question.
This is the friend, right?
Yeah.
Did y'all know Mr. Urbanski before this event took place? Y'all had any contact with him at all?
No.
So you would say that
All
at
right.
no point in time you would have been able to.
Yeah, she answered the question. Let's go on. Next, the defense witness.
Next slide, please.
No, it's us. It's going back to us. The last one.
Right there.
Good?
Yes. We call to the stand, Mr. Sean Urbanski.
I'll just interject quickly. Mr. Urbanski, do you swear or affirm that testify the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Yes.
What were you doing before this incident?
I was on my way to a party. I was drunk and I was high on cocaine.
Okay.
A substance. I'll just say a substance. I'm not supposed to say that.
So,
it was never my intent to kill Lieutenant Richard Collins III that night. When I stabbed him, I was retaliating to some comments that he made to me as I was walking. Much of what witnesses are coming forward with is rather one-sided, and they've been using my membership in the group on Facebook as fuel for their argument to paint a negative picture of me and my character. However, there are missing pieces that no one is telling. My affiliation with that group has nothing to do with my altercation with Mr. Collins or why I did what I did. In no way were my actions random or planned, as Mr. Collins made a comment about me to his friends as I walked near the bus stop, which led to a violent argument between us. I stabbed him in the heat of the moment. It was not premeditated. Also, I was by myself, whereas Mr. Collins was not, so I am my only witness. I feel horribly that my actions led to his death, and I'm deeply sorry to him and his family for the grief I brought to them.
What was the context of the conversational argument that led you to this action?
It was a misunderstanding, difference in, it was a lack of communication as far as what. So, when I was communicating with him, we didn't get along, and obviously, as I said, I was intoxicated under a substance and alcohol, so.
So since you were intoxicated, you chose to just hate on me, decide to hurt you.
No, I don't think I made that decision consciously. It was more so fueled by the substance I was under.
Go for it.
You stated that Mr. Collins made a comment about you to his friends. What exactly did you hear him say?
I didn't hear everything, but I did hear them joking about me as I was walking up.
So you didn't hear everything, how would you know that he was specifically talking about you?
We were the only ones that were there. It was his friends.
So you don't know the exact comments that he made that was racial?
I don't, but I didn't like the way it looked as I was coming, and my inhibitions were a little off at the time, so I just made an impulse decision.
No problem.
Okay. Can you tell me again why you attacked Mr. Collins rather than his friends?
He was the one that made the joke.
That you thought you heard?
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting. Could you tell us about the group that you joined? I believe it's called the Outreach Nation.
Yeah, it's a group that I found on Facebook that a lot of students I found were a part of, and I'm new around here, so I decided to join.
And what kind of group is it?
I mean, as far as I know, it's just a group for people to
Now, now you say you're new, but you've been at the university for quite some time, years. So I'm confused why you say you're new when you've been there for.
I come here for school. I'm not from here. So when I came here, I joined to meet people.
Okay, and being a sympathizer of a hate group that is historically known for murdering people who do not look like them, such as how you murdered Lieutenant Richard Collins, who does not look anything like you. How do you say this is not a hate crime?
I don't believe the two are correlated.
How are they not correlated? In what way do you believe they're not correlated?
Because I am a part of the group. However, that night when this situation took place, it was provoked.
It was provoked by.
Finish your question.
And so you say it was provoked by you walking by and hearing other patrons in general laughing and talking with each other. And you naturally assumed that it was about you.
As I saw them looking at me.
Okay, now can you be sure that they were looking at you, or were they just, because at the end of the day, you're in a public place. There are things that are behind you, there are things that are beside you, there are things everywhere. People everywhere. How can you say that they were looking at you and not looking at something else?
As I stated before, it was them at the bus stop and me alone. It was 3 a.m. Nobody else was outside, and I was rather close to them.
Okay. No further questions.
No further questions.
Closing.
We seek the maximum sentence of life without parole. The charge of a hate crime resulting in death carries a maximum sentence of 20 years on a person. Urbanski was a part of a Facebook group that is called Outrage Nation, which stoked concerns of a possible hate crime amid heightened racial tensions at the University of Maryland and at other colleges across the country. Richard Collins was simply standing with his friends and was repeatedly stabbed at the bus stop because of the color of his skin. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act requires the U.S. Sentencing Commission to increase the penalties for hate crimes committed on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, ethnicity, or gender of any person. Also, the Facebook group and other evidence shows that premeditated killing by race, which entails this account as first-degree murder.
This evidence alone shows Urbanski's motives. This was an unprovoked, premeditated killing. It may be said that in criminal law, the constitutional element of an offense is the mens rea, or the guilty intent. Furthermore, so there is no confusion, we will break down Urbanski's culpable state of mind using MPC model penal code, which is as follows. Actingly purposely. As he said before, Urbanski had an underlying conscious object to act through his evidential hate towards African Americans. Acting knowingly. Urbanski was perfectly certain that the knife will cause injury or death to Mr. Collins. Even a dog knows the difference between being stumbled over and being kicked. Third, acting recklessly, Urbanski consciously disregarded a substantial and unjustified risk by stabbing Mr. Collins. And fourth, acting negligently. Urbanski was not aware of the risk, but should have been aware of the risk.
We seek justice for Mr. Collins. It's hard to say if this will bring peace to his family, but no one deserves to lose their innocent child at such a young age. We ask that you look at all of the evidence and everything that we have presented here today in court and consider the best action for the consequences of Mr. Urbanski.
Thank you.
We know that two elements must exist. Elements must exist simultaneously for a person to be convicted of a crime. The performance of a prohibited act, actus reus, and a guilty state of mind or intent on the part of the actor, mens rea. In order to be convicted of murder, each of the elements of murder must be satisfied. Of a human, by a human, through criminal act or omission, with malice, aforethought, premeditated mental state, desire or intent to take a person's life. This being said, Mr. Sean Urbanski did not premeditate the killing of Lieutenant Richard Collins III. nor did he have the men's words or desire to take his life. Therefore, we have concluded that he is not guilty of the murder.
Thank you.
I think you guys did an outstanding job. First of all, Team 5, you guys both teams came, dressed better than the other teams collectively. So gave you both a 96 for that. Team 4, your understanding of the, I'll go to the prosecution first for Team 5. Your understanding of what you had to prove was stellar. I think it could have been, again, as I said at the beginning, I would have stated what the elements are and what you needed to prove, and then at the end kind of close what you did prove based upon what we had discussed the last group. But you guys did an awesome job with understanding the facts, using particularly the issue of sympathy by putting a personality, a person, on the screen and talking about Mr. Collins, although there was one incorrect statement. You said that he had been killed moments before graduation. It wasn't moments. Moments are like, a few minutes or an hour, but he was killed hours before graduation. But nevertheless, that was very strong in terms of your opening. And even, as I said, your closing statement was superior. It was definitely, again, outlining what you needed to prove, even going to the model code and actually bringing it up. That's exactly what you needed to do. And so for that, we gave you a 97. I think it could have been even stronger in terms of the substance. So again, substantively, again, you got a strong score. And the other side, the substance, I think you all had also a very strong command of the facts. You put some, again, personality on the defendant, which was difficult, but you did that. Perhaps to create at least some ambiguity in the judge's mind about whether or not, again, the elements that was necessary to prove were proven. Again, premeditation. You talked about, again, the possible fight scenario, or again being being provoked by a college to some extent, which takes away to some extent premeditation. Although premeditation it doesn't take, again, long to have a premeditation. It doesn't take hours to have. All it has to take is you again came up with a thought to kill that person, and then you acted on that thought. So. But again, you created some confusion about that. The prosecution could have done a little bit better job to kind of rebut that, to actually talk about, hey, this is premeditated. He said that you didn't, plan it, right? So then, again, you might not have had a plan before coming to that moment, but the plan was developed, when he saw him, and he saw not just a person, but he saw an African American on his campus. He got, he came to a conclusion that Mr. Collins did not belong on his campus, right? He didn't actually even know whether or not Collins was a visitor or not. Again, these are types of things that the prosecution would have to say, But nevertheless, you guys did a great job, Team 4. And so for that reason, we gave you a 98. Group member participation. I think that, again, in terms of group member participation in the first team, you guys did a good job at group member participation. However, during the questioning, the prosecution, you did a good job in having 2 witnesses as opposed to you only really needed 1. But that second witness, she, basically was on both sides of the fence in terms of the main question. you ask if this is a prosecution witness, you want to make sure you know what the witness is going to say. And if she's going to be on the fence, you want to be prepared to actually, ask her quickly another question to get the facts that you need to get out of her at that time. She went on and on in this undecisive mode about whether or not, again, the key and central issue was there. So she took away your particular points from there. On Team 4, however, I think that everybody participated, although again it just was not necessarily as equal. But both of you guys got 94 for your good representation. PowerPoint presentations were both good. Team 4, I liked that, but I think that Team 4 you could have gotten better because that last element and it was confusing. It was you started off as being a human. First of all, it's the killing of a human. That's the point. Going that closing statement, that last arrow. So
we said we didn't say that.
That last arrow, she started off saying being. You can pull that out. Yes, right. And in order to be convicted of a murder, each of the elements of murder must be first satisfied. First of all, is the killing of a killing first. Yeah. Now I'm saying that had to be right. I'm saying it could have been. You got a higher score. Had that happened, so that's my point. Nevertheless, the PowerPoint presentation, I gave a PowerPoint presentation. Pull up the team 8. Team 5.
If we had
hold on one second. Team 5. I thought that the close. Go back up a little bit more. Yeah. I thought that was a very persuasive. Putting the guilty piece up there was very, very wise. I like that. And again, I thought that I thought that you guys did both good on your presentations. So for that reason, we gave you 97. Q&A, again, I think the questioning, both the direct and the cross-examination from Team 4 was stellar.
We couldn't even squeeze our questions
in. That's how it happens. And so, again, I think you guys did very well. Again, the score of Team 5 was reduced because of the problems of your prosecution witness that was discussed earlier. In terms of the judges, I think the judges, again, your dress was not fitting for judges of all, for all of you all. And then, as I said, if you shouldn't be wearing jackets, and especially as judges, unless you're going to be wearing, you pretend to be robes or something like that. You guys want to roll like that, but.
I'm sorry, you said it again?
I said that the judges should not wear coats, not jackets, coats.
These are robes.
Right. Anyway, so it was for a team appearance, you could have done a little bit better. For that reason, we gave you.